Okay, I'm here with Adam Rush, local poet, and I have a few questions for him. So, Tyler, when did you first start writing poetry? What age were you?
It was the 4th grade, so I must have been, I would imagine, around 10 or 11 years old.
Did your poem rhyme?
Not really. It did have some kind of form of an alliteration in it. I didn't know what that was at the time, of course, but it was more narrative or family-related, personal. So at that time, I was really decided I wanted to be a writer. You're a writer or a baseball player, of course,
Right.
But
Well, that's cool. Do you still have that publication?
oh yeah, I still have those poems. I used to write in these little examination books. They're blue now, but back in the day they would be more like a brown with hardcover. And because most of my family members are teachers, I had tons of these notebooks, so I would just fill them up
Right.
with as much poetry since the 4th grade going on, pretty much.
So you started writing more in high school, because I remember that you had a lot of poems in high school and stuff. Like you were into that then.
I would say, about 8th grade, I wrote my first quote-unquote love ballad about someone, and then.
Did you give it to her?
No, of course not. Of course not, especially at that age.
How old were you?
It was in 8th grade, so I guess 15.
15, huh?
So,
So you don't want to release her identity right now, do you?
I wouldn't want to embarrass her. But so then I wrote a lot in high school, and then most of the time when I went to college, that's when I really got the most writing done, probably between the years of like 1992 to 1998.
And how many poems did you write at that time?
I probably, up to 92, I probably had about 150 poems or so. Now I have about close to 600.
So what was your first collection of poems or book of poems that you put together?
I published Obscene Letters to Mo in 1992. And that was edited by my friend Christina Monti. It's about 10 to 12 poems. And a friend of mine, Melissa Slotnick, was the actual one that laid it out and designed the idea. And it was kind of a joke because I used to write to her when I was in college, and she was still going to school here in high school. And her parents would say obscene letters. So that's how that title came about. Obscene Letters to Melissa, or Mo, as we used to call her. So.
Right.
But that was in 92. So, and then I followed that up with Trench Madness, which was basically the same kind of idea. But this time I did a full color, 4-color cover this time with a real design, a little bit better paper quality, about 15 poems in that one with an introduction. So.
And then you started going to CDs after that, right?
Well, yeah, most recently I've been experimenting with music.
So when's your next book of poems coming out? And do you have a title with the poem selected in it?
I have the poems that have been selected. The title is still up in the air. I'm calling it Transit right now. That's the working title right now. It's probably about, I'd say, a little less than 100 poems, and it ranges from basically 1991, 92 to about 2012. So it's most of about 20 years worth of poetry.
So how many poems will be in this book, you think?
About 100, I would say.
100, awesome.
Exactly, about that area. Maybe a little less than that. I'll have an introduction, already in the works, and it's going to start as like an ebook, basically, where you can get it online digitally, and then I'm hoping to get some publishers interested in it after that.
Well, great. Would that be like advertised on your Facebook page or your YouTube page or something like that? Where can we look for that?
Well, we can definitely look at my Facebook page, Adam Rush, ATOM Rush. You can also check me out on Amazon. That's where you can get my CD. Or you can also listen to it on streaming, Spotify, iTunes, all those devices. SoundCloud, I even have a SoundCloud site, a YouTube site as well, where I do some videos with you, of course.
Great. And so what were your major influences with poetry? Who influenced you as far as poets go? What are your favorite poets?
I would say Walt Whitman is probably on the top of that list. Allen Ginsberg, Charles Bukowski. I like Jack Kerouac's poetry. And a lot of obscure beat poets that I've never heard of, like Lou Welch, maybe, and Jack Michelin, who
How about living poets? Like what?
Living poets.
Who's writing some good stuff these days, besides you, bro?
That's a good question. I would say that modern poetry.
That's a tough one, right?
Has a lot. Has a lot to work on. I mean, I think, when we think of poetry now in today's society, it kind of threads through a lot of musical. Like Tom Waits is a poet. Lou Reed is a poet. Now, their music and their influences, Bob Dylan was a poet. So it's still out there. It's just, it's probably waiting for another revival, and that's the way poetry always is. Most of the revivals happen at the end of centuries, the 60s, 70s area, like with the most recent Beat Generation in the 50s or 60s, and then Whitman was doing his stuff way before that too, in the previous century. And you can go back, pretty much go all the way back, all the way through the Organics.
So would you describe your poetry as a certain genre? Is there such a thing, or?
Jack Michelin used to call it outlaw poetry.
Outlaw poetry. Well, I think you're holding the weight for poets now, these days, dude. So people definitely got to check out your work.
I appreciate it. I take a lot of pride in, a lot of work in it. And
so we'll look for Transit coming up. And we'll look for that on your Facebook page.
And I have the Adam Rush CD as well to check out on Amazon if you guys want to check it out, download it. It's got about 9 tracks on it.
So I want to thank you for your time today. And we'll be making another video soon.
Sober at midnight, with a half-empty bottle of wine in hand, looking out a window at the vast dimensions of land, with my falling and rising eyes full of pain and pleasure, my body trapped in this smoke-filled room, the scent of strawberry incense covering the sweet perfume of marijuana being smoked by the dramatic burnout poets in the corner of the dark coffee house. Whispers at the night as a man with a shaved head stands fully erect, eyes a blank stare, fire coming out of his mouth and his eyes, screaming his lyrics of social stability and his broken poetry of the superior Aryan race. A small regiment cheers him on, many others fall silent, laughing to themselves. My mind wanders unaware of this place, out into the deserted countryside. Through the farmhouses and barnyards, through the haystacks and manure fields, running with the windmills, air fast on my shoulder, invisible in the grass plains, hiding in this shadow of a field, exposing my paper wings and their false hope to reveal the whispering voices of tall, endless, forgotten trees in the distance, through the deep winding forest with its confusing paths, running up empty staircases of hills and cliffs where Rourke lay silent and naked, cherishing the earth with a vision of himself. And I look at my reflection in the murky swamps, hoping I am not alone. Through the sky so blue and endless, impossible to be clouded with any other existence but our own passion. Through the distant pools made from eternal rains, made from the commotion and motion of ocean, an earth trembling with fear. Through open windows and tinted windshields, this vision of obscure figures hidden beyond our own immortal reigns. Through the air crisp and fresh, tickling our flesh with sensation and rebirth, calming our minds with patience and mirth, and making us sleep through all the thunder, blinding us with flashes of brilliance, creating in the dark outlines of our own reflections. I am not alone. Sober at midnight, no escape into the intoxication of nature. The coffee house now bare except for a few stranded vagabonds, drinking coffee and mumbling to themselves. A girl sits on the stage, a dark and hidden figure, speaking soft poetry that makes me want to sleep. And my clutched hand will not release this empty bottle.